Well, welcome to this presentation, 5 Practical Lessons for Mastering the Art of Auditing. I'm Mike Richmond, your host for Exemplar Global's online auditing expo. This session is presented by Miriam Boudreaux. Miriam is the CEO of Mireaux Management Solutions and a leading expert in ISO and API management systems. She has more than 30 years of experience in implementing, auditing, and training. In this presentation, Miriam is going to dive into the skills you need to master the auditing function. Miriam, thank you for joining us here at the Expo.
Thank you, Mike, for having me here. Thank you for the introductions. So I have been in this field for years, and today I'm really excited to share with your audience 5 practical lessons for mastering the art of auditing. And hopefully this can help the auditors become better at their job. So these are not just 5 lessons that I just came up with. They are really part of my own experience in auditing. So these practical lessons, just a summary here, are dress for success, break the ice, leave with a bang, write the why on all the OFI's observations and concerns, and then a non-conformant has 3 parts, so better know what to write on each. So let's start with dress for success. So I know auditing is not a fashion show, but whether you're walking into an office or a manufacturing plant, how you dress really matters. How you are perceived really matters. So auditing in places where steel-toe boots and having a hard hat was non-negotiable, but I still make sure that my attire say, I am here to take this seriously. Check out these pictures, for example. If you're looking like, you know who this actor is, right? If you're looking like him, all disheveled and just with a t-shirt, do you think people are going to take you seriously? But check out the picture on the right. Will you think that that's more of a professional auditor, right? With a jacket and, all well groomed. So really, how you look is going to make a difference on what people think of you and also how they treat you during the audit. So my dress code, my entire look, to me is very important. It depicts professionalism and how you want to be seen. Like I said, just a crisp blazer, a pair of slacks should be good enough, even if you have to wear a safety vest. My rule of thumb is always overdress rather than underdress. I know it might seem silly, but that's just what I've always done. I want to look the part. I want people to trust me. And to me, that small thing, it goes a long ways in building credibility. So now we go with the second tip here is to break the ice. So when you go into an interview, basically, before you start the interview, people might be a little bit nervous because all audits are tense. You're kind of under the microscope. People don't like being under a microscope or having a big light shining on them when the auditor is asking questions. So I always just try to find a little small talk to say. For example, I may start saying something just as simple as, how's your week going? Right? That will apply to anybody. But if you're in an office, like an engineer's office or a manager's office, check around. Maybe they have a picture of their family, or maybe they have, school paraphernalia, like in this picture. And you can say, hey, you're a big Bama fan or a big Cougars fan, right? And then just kind of put them at ease, and they might talk a little bit about it. That will certainly make them feel more comfortable in their own territory. And if you're on the shop floor, hey, you can find many things that you can try to give them praise for. Maybe their area is clean, or maybe how long they've been with the company, and that's a great thing. Or maybe just something like, hey, I've heard you're a master at your craft. Just something to make them feel at ease. It's not about wasting time. It's just about helping people feel good and then putting them at ease. Also, this should not take more than really a minute at most. And then the next thing I do, I transition into explaining what I am there to do. Something like, my goal today is to understand your processes and see what's working well and spot any areas that we can improve together. That really helps them to know that this is a collaborative exercise, and emphasizing that you're not the enemy, you're not there to find faults, but rather you're a partner and you're there to ensure that the requirements are being met, because that's really what you're there to do. So those are the two things that I do when I start. And again, nothing should be taking more than really a minute or two. Next. Okay, so now we are at the end of the interview. And my tip here is to leave each interview with a bang. And there are some parts to it. So first, really, my book is just, I want to leave with a lasting impression. So they know that the audit exercise was important. And rather than just saying thank you and leaving, I always gather everyone. I do. So if I interview one person, but along the way, the manager had to intervene and say something, or one of their colleagues had to say, something else, before I leave, I gather them everybody, because they all sort of participated in the interview. So I gather them, and I could just, so again, it could be one person, and it could be multiple people. And then I kind of just say, what I found in that area. And first, I start by saying what was strong, something that I found good. So I try to find something that they did well, unless they were doing really bad. But really, to me, it's important to say, thank you for your cooperation. Even that could be something good. Next, I actually tell them what needs work. So what I found wrong. And this is where I find it very important, because what I want to do is, I don't have all the findings ready, but I definitely should have a summary of what happened there and what I found wrong. And when I tell them what I found wrong, that is going to be a nonconformity, this is really important, because you want to find out if there is a misunderstanding, right? Maybe you understood something wrong and you're about to make this a nonconformity. So maybe they will say, wait a minute, actually, that's not right. I have something else to show you, or something like that, right? So to me, it is very important that I explain this, because you don't want to go into the closing meeting with the misunderstanding that was really just that. And that will be very embarrassing for an auditor at that moment to be called out because they, misunderstood something. So I definitely make it very clear what it is, no jargon, just try to be very clear. And then that way, anything, any kind of discrepancies will get resolved right there. So once I do that, then I give them thanks, right? And then I shake hands. I do. I know it's an old school, especially after COVID, but I actually shake hands, whether it is an office person or whether it is a guy next to a furnace. He or she might have to take their gloves, but I shake their hands, and I just feel, thank you for your time, because really they have a job to do, and I'm there kind of, in the middle of their work. So these are my just 5 tips for leaving the interview with a bang. All right, so next we have the why and the context on the finding, on particularly opportunities for improvements, which are also called OFIs, and then observations and or concerns. So for ISO, they usually call it observations, but for API it's called concerns. So I'll explain that in a second. But to me, this is where the value of the OFIs, observations or concerns come alive. So let me explain. With the OFIs, it isn't just a suggestion, it is a chance for the auditor to add value based on my experience, not just as a professional, but auditing many companies. And that's really, happened to me and probably all the auditors, right? You go to many companies, and of course, I'm talking more about external auditors. And then you see many management systems, and then you see some great things. And so when you go to another company that is not doing that, you want to tell them, hey, there's a company that is maybe in similar business or doing a similar thing, and they have a very nice process. But you may not want to tell them that, but what you want to do is call their, I guess, shortcoming or the area that could be more efficient. So you want to write in your OFI, what is it and why it really matters. For example, if you find, because as an auditor also you're talking to people and they might be disclosing things to you that maybe the manager just overlooked, right? So if you write an OFI saying the warehouse receiving log could be simplified. When you look at it, it's a good OFI, and the manager might say something like, yeah, it's good, but hey, it's working, and if it's not broken, why should I fix that? Because you didn't really give them the why, right? So here is where you want to say, you want to expand. And you want to expand in two ways. You want to give them the why, but you also want to give them the context. And let me just rephrase how we'll say that OFI. I will say something, for example, like, although the warehouse receiving log contains great information, most of it has already been captured in the ERP system when the shipment is received and scanned. Therefore, it could be eliminated, thus reducing time spent entering that information twice. If a written copy is still desired, perhaps the company should see if some columns could be removed in lieu of only essential information that can be helpful alongside the ERP. I know this is, long, might take time, but here is where that part that I was saying, the context comes into place. When you put something so small, it's like, by tomorrow, I might not even know where you were and why are you saying that? So your OFI or your ops has to be understandable today, tomorrow, and 6 months from now. So you have to add the verbiage, the context, so I know what you were talking about and why are you saying that, right? So that I understand. But of course, the why will let me to believe, hey, you're right, we are double duplicating that. And of course, you as an auditor, you were auditing all the processes, so you evidently came across that maybe is not glaringly to the people that are already there day in and day out. So that's definitely, something that I recommend. But the same thing will apply to observations or concerns. You want to spell out what could go wrong if those are ignored and how those could result in nonconformity if they are not addressed. I see many observations or concerns not really being explained why and what could happen if they are not taken care of. So the why in your findings, to me, should be the roadmap of what I need to do, rather than just, kind of like a checklist item. And the last tip that I have is that an NCN, a nonconformity, has three parts. And there's a reason for three parts. And I cannot believe I still see nonconformity is not written well. So let me just explain. The first part is the requirement. This is where you're going to write, or you should write the requirement as is. So if you're citing this nonconformity or writing this nonconformity against the standard, just write the standard as is. Don't change it. Don't try to interpret it. Just copy the way it is. So whomever is receiving that nonconformity knows exactly what it is and where it came from, right? Something like ISO 9001 clause 8.2.3 requires X, that's it. Or if you are writing it against a procedure, then write procedure or SOP 123 paragraph 2.2 says this. First of all, don't write it against multiple standards because you're going to confuse the auditee. They're not going to know what to fix. And I understand, some of them may, but some of them it's like they're going to see it and they're going to get confused. Don't write it against a standard and a procedure also. I just feel that, again, confusing. Just tell me what I did not meet. And if it is the standard and the procedure, well, guess what? The standard should be a higher priority than a procedure because the procedure should all along have met the requirements of the standard. So cite the standard. But if it is the procedure, just cite the procedure. It is best to give them, I guess, the nonconformity as easy as possible so they know what to fix. And if you feel that there is, two areas, then just write two nonconformities. I always try to write less nonconformities by summarizing the examples into one. But if you have two requirements, then that definitely deserves two nonconformities. Next is the actual nonconformance part of the nonconformity, or the failure, really. I could have named this a failure. This just tells them what was not met, okay, and should be just a brief, like a brief sentence. Do not put here all the examples that you collected and all the samples. That doesn't go here. That goes on the evidence. This is by far the biggest problem I see when I see nonconformities. Everything is piled up in the failure or nonconformance part, yet in the evidence, there's like nothing. It's like a sentence, when in fact it should be the opposite, right? In the nonconformance, it's just a statement like procedures are not being followed or training is not being completed on time. Just a sentence to tell me what part of the requirement was not met. Then we go into the third part. That's the evidence. That's where you put all of your samples and everything you collected throughout the audit. So here, for example, you can say SOP 123, SOP 124, SOP 001. None of them are being followed, or they are all past due for revision. Here is where you can say, tool 1, tool 10, tool 102, they are all past due for calibration. That's where you're going to name or list your evidence, your samples, everything you collected, even your names. You can say, if it's about training, here is where you can say, Steve or Mary, and maybe use their last name, whatever it might be. But here is where you can say training was not found for these people, and you list them there. So that makes it for a good nonconformity where all three parts are very distinctive and very actionable. So when the auditee reads the report with these nonconformities, they can easily go and take care of them because they know exactly where the problem lies. So that is really my 5 tips. if you want more information or need help on any kind of consulting, auditing, training, or even our web QMS software, you can contact us. Thank you.
Well, and thank you, Miriam Boudreaux, for that terrific presentation. Really well done there. I really appreciate you joining us and giving us the wisdom of your insights. I think the audience really appreciated it, so thanks. So for those of you watching this session on demand, as you all are, if you have questions and you want us to address them to Miriam, just write us at info@exemplarglobal.org, and we're going to get them right over to Miriam for you. And before we close, I want to remind you that we have several other great presentations here at the Online Auditing Expo, so check them all out. And we encourage you to claim your CPD for those sessions and this one. You can do that on your screen right there. There's a little link where you can go and claim your CPD. And don't forget that we're offering a live session, a live panel discussion at the end of the expo, where you can pose questions of Miriam and our other expert panelists. So look forward to information about how you can join us at that live session coming up via email soon. So thanks again to all of you for joining us here at the session and at the expo. And enjoy the rest of the sessions we have for you here at this year's event. Bye-bye.